Checking back in with State Representative Tacky Chan of Quincy for a after Thanksgiving Tacky Talk. Hey, Tacky.
Hey, Joe. Happy end of the month of November. We got one more day tomorrow to the end, and I hope you and your family and everyone else watching and listening had a wonderful long holiday over Thanksgiving.
Thank you. We did. We it was a success because we ate way too much. So that's how you know it's a success.
Well, I suppose a success of a dinner is how many leftovers there are.
That's right. Well, I remember you were cooking. I remember last we chatted. You gave me the rundown. How did it go?
Well, as I said, we did our Thanksgiving the Saturday before Thanksgiving due to family scheduling problems. So it was 3 days of me cooking, and people were quite happy with my Chinese roast pork and my mashed potatoes and mint mustard roasted lamb and made cheesecake and Chinese sweet red bean soups and other folks brought in a few things like Chinese veggies and I put out simple things like potato chips and pickles and other things like that as the appetizer, pre-dinner type stuff. And and then a couple pops and brought plenty of soda. I can only have because of my limited capacity eat Maine what's it called, Maine root beer, Maine ginger beer. It's not cheap. It's not cheap soda. I don't drink it very often, but as you all know, I'll have this dietary limitations with my food allergy. So what little pleasures I can get, I will.
Nice, nice. Well, that was nice. That was nice to contribute to your family. Sure.
Yeah, and mom made a pork and chicken soup, so
Hmm.
that was actually a good starter as well. So, but I mean, it was a good day. I mean, like 14 total 14 people. Some people had to come leave early a little bit, but yeah, no, we had a fun night. Um,
Nice.
and then Thanksgiving for me, since we did everything the prior Saturday, was blissfully quiet.
That's good. Not a bad thing for sure. Although it wasn't quiet in the city, that's for sure, from football to Santa Claus and everything in between.
Yeah, Thanksgiving is the big hurrah of holidays before, actually, for the rest of the year. A lot of my colleagues find themselves in Christmas parades during the week of Christmas, as well as New Year events and other types of similar celebrations during the 22nd to January 1st. So I tell my colleagues that Christmas is actually pretty quiet for elected officials in Quincy. Obviously, we have some tree lightings in neighborhoods. Hell's Neck is doing their lobster pot tree lighting, I think, on December 10th, and this coming weekend is the Adam Shore tree lighting in the evening, which is really just limited to the neighborhood. There, a lot of the events are just for the neighborhood. You have to get invited in by a neighbor if you want to participate. And there'll be other ones going around the city, but I mean, no major parades or like 3 hours of big events. I mean, the mayor had his incredibly well done event at the front of City Hall again this past weekend, and the tree lighting at City Hall. And so my other colleagues tend to be a little bit jealous of the fact that we actually do have peaceful December, relatively speaking, for elected officials.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like the 4th of July too. We do it all on Flag Day here in Quincy.
We do, but I mean, remember smaller parades, right? You got Swan Parade, Marymount
Yeah.
Parade. In my case, is Adam Shore
Yeah.
celebration scholarship program, and to have the family day at Germantown. So and we have the pre-family fun days on the third out in Hell's Neck as well as in Marymount, and then obviously everyone knows about the Hell's Neck bonfire as well, the night of the third, which I don't go to. At that point, I'm kind of exhausted anyway from a lot of different things before. So yeah, again, every community is different. One of the nice things about working this job is you can talk to other folks about what goes on there, and sometimes we're envious, sometimes we're not.
Well, they can envy this tacky. This AM Quincy show that we're recording today is the 1000th episode of AM Quincy.
Oh wow, milestone time! Is there like a double titanium platinum anniversary ring involved?
No, I don't think so. Maybe they'll give me a new selfie ring light or a new webcam or something.
Well, this is all I want for Christmas by Joe Catalano.
That's right. So, but yeah, the 1000th episode, and you're a big contributor to that number. So we thank you for utilizing us here at QATV.
Oh, congratulations. I mean, it takes a lot of perseverance to get to 1,000 episodes, and you interview, hundreds of people over the course of your lifetime. And, thank you for letting me again. I mean, I always say thank you for letting me being part of this. I know we started this during, basically at the onset of COVID, and enjoyed the ride together so much that over 3 years now, we're still together.
Yep. Yep. Seems appropriate that you would be the 1000th because you are the most prolific producer of them all.
Well, again, as listeners have learned over the years plus now that this is a casual conversation. It's not scripted, and Joe does surprise me with questions I have no idea is coming. So, and you've all seen me try to dance around stuff, and Joe hold me to the fire, avoiding dance. So, I think this is kind of fun because it's considerably more candid conversations, and and obviously, try to be less colorful about my words of choice.
That's right. We've never had to edit, Tacky. We'll say that we've never had to edit.
Although we've had many technical difficulties, right? I mean,
well, this is true, yes. But when you think about it, I mean, we've done these from the front seat of your car. We've done them from Austin, Texas. We've done them, from a myriad of different places.
yeah, I think next time I go on an educational trip, we should do another one like that. I'll show you where I am, or a conference or meeting. With COVID, obviously, essentially I wouldn't say under control, but I mean, we've learned how to live with this properly, like we do with the flu and common colds and RSVs and other infectious diseases we get, especially in wintertime. I mean, I'm actually still hoping to get more educational business trips in at some point. Because I lost a lot of time, like everyone else listening. I mean, we lost a lot of time on the opportunity to get caught up and meet folks, and legislature should get out. Not like saying all the time, but I mean, we definitely should take opportunities to get beefed up on our knowledge bases. And TechNet was one of those opportunities. As other ones could be coming up, and as I'm trying to decide what I want to do during the legislative schedule, because the schedule dictates my life. The speaker sets the schedule, and it's not always a lot of advance notice on these schedules. So my schedule does juggle during the course of a week, depending on when a session is called. Other folks, have like a routine, right? You have like a schedule, your set schedule. I mean, Quincy Council is the best example, right? Quincy State Council is meeting on Mondays, every other week on a Monday. So, for budget, when they go like 3, 4, 5, 6 days, which could involve a 10-hour day or more, depending on how they schedule that week. They can't call special sessions like they do during COVID, but I mean, at least there's like every other Monday, plus these odd situations for the budget. Obviously we have a schedule for the budget. We know generally where it's going to be, so I can work around that. But on a week by week basis, I get the announcement from the speaker's office late Friday about the session next week or no session next week. So, our office schedules my meetings and my events and, other types of whatever, including my personal life stuff, not making assumptions about the schedule. It's dangerous. You can't just assume that it's going to be X day. This includes like vacation time, right? Not just educational conferences. So since we're in person, there's no remote capacity for us in the House, unlike the Senate, which can still remote capacity. We have to show up in person. The schedule constantly shuffles when a formal session is called.
Right. So speaking of, I know you're in informal session now, right?
Yes, under the law, we have to come in every 72 hours to have a session. It's an informal session. You see this in Congress too, where you can pass bills by unanimous consent. One person objects, closes down the whole session. We can call quorum. You could simply say object, and it shuts down the session. It basically cancels the calendar for that informal session. So we are still moving some bills, but we don't all of the non-controversial type. Or if it's a little bit more controversy, any single person can object, and you end up in this weird negotiation, one person. Thankfully, for better or for worse, I mean, our recess is actually fairly short overall. It's about 6 or so odd weeks. And January 1st Wednesday after the first Monday is the opening of the 2024 session. It's a weird issue where we operate into 2-year sessions in the rules, but for the purposes of the opening of a session and closing of a session, it revolves around the first Wednesday after the first Monday.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Interesting. First Wednesday after the first. So the first Monday is New Year's Day in 2024.
Yeah, which is as close as is the earliest you could possibly have of an opening
Right.
of a session. So we do go through this ceremonial process every single year. Obviously, 2024 is not a fanfare. There's no swearing in of members. As you may imagine, swearing in day is very special for many folks, but especially brand new electeds. They bring all their family, and the building really is about not just opening a session, but also celebrating newly electeds and welcome to the chamber and their families as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, it'll be very quiet. There's not a lot of fanfare, not a lot of stuff's going to happen. We have to go through these ceremonial processes pursuant to the Constitution.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they've been there a year now. It's old hat.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. They found a way to the bathroom, so to speak, right?
That's the most important thing. And the back door to get out.
That's true too. I mean, learning the maze of the State House, and yeah, back door. I mean, our Ashburton Place entrance opened up after Labor Day.
Mm.
We had lost that entrance for pretty much the entire year as they renovated the up and down stairs to allow a tap pass ability for state employees to actually enter the State House. We used to actually have to flash a badge, and they would have to inspect every badge. Now we're finally cut up to the 21st century, folks, where I
Ooh,
have tap ability to enter the building.
excellent. Very good. Well, it's one of, if not the oldest working state house in the country, isn't it?
Absolutely. State House is, we like to say it's the oldest one, but I mean, I think some other states will argue that. But I can safely say that we are the oldest operating State House in terms of full operations, right? We're just not a legislative body. We have all the office spaces for legislators there, as well as all the
Mhm.
constitutional officers, but the Attorney General. And it's actually technically a functioning museum. It's an old building between the paintings, the governor's portraits, the various architectural marvels of the building, and just the historical significance is actually really a museum too. So we always refer to this as a fully functional office building, a legislative body, and a museum.
Yeah, yeah. It's not just ceremonial; it's the real deal, folks.
It is like many state houses. Tour groups come through all the time, and we have about 1,000 odd employees, give or take. And then the place can swell up to 2,500 plus people in the height of tourist season.
So, did you get any work done this week, Jackie?
A little bit of work done. I mean, had my staff meeting, and then they gave me some letters to edit and documents to read, which, like any good office does, you drop stuff on a boss's desk, and this is your problem, not mine. Uh,
Good to delegate, right?
well, sometimes they delegate to you. Not a bad thing. Everybody knows what their roles are. I think that's the way to put it. And that's important of a well-run office. I mean, just because it's your office, you're the boss to run it, doesn't mean that you just dump your work on other people and don't take responsibility. I mean, end of the day, it's my name on every sheet of paper, for better for worse. And something happens, they act on my behalf. So when you talk to my office, you're talking to me because I will hear. So I remind that to every person who visits, including government affairs people, and that you talk to anybody who works for anybody in this office, whether it's an intern or a paid staffer. You're talking to me. You're talking to the office holder because it's what it is. It's an office holder, right? You're holding the office now, but it could be someone else's later. So as I like to say, you don't have to love the elected, but you should respect the office.
Yep. And the constituents that put you there, right?
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And like I said, I do hear from my own people. I mean, they're the ones who get in front of these calls that I can't get in front of because of, again, scheduling. We talked about that earlier. And I find out about stuff. And I took some constituent calls last week. Somehow my cell phone's floating around, which I don't know who's doing this to me, but that's okay. And but Thanksgiving weekend is generally very quiet overall in terms of like work. I mean, I didn't have to do any briefings. I didn't have to go be a speaker at a policy issue. But coming up next week, you're going to get things like the FY25 consensus budget hearing, where you're going to hear a lot of economists trying to project out 2024's economic outlook, as well as projections on potential tax revenues. And they'll give the range. They'll give the most pessimistic views. They'll give the most optimistic views from different groups. They're generally about 6 to 8 different economists with very different models. And Ways and Means will spend about 2 to 4 hours, depending on the line of questioning on what people are thinking, that the experts in this industry of economics, and try to project out what the 2024 is, and then set up the 25 fiscal year budget. And there'll be a consensus number between House and Senate Ways and Means, and the governor's office, administration and finance secretary will put that number out. And that's the number we're going to work around unless new data shows up, which does happen. I mean, in April, May, June, July, we get new data, then the budget will be readjusted up or down based on that new data. So that's the thrilling part of the legislature in December, listening to economists talk about the 2024 budget.
Yeah. One thing that has not got done yet, as you're well aware, is the supplemental budget.
Yeah, the reconciliation budget, so to speak, as I like to call it, deficiency budget we used to call in the old days. So, we're addressing several things in this. One is the comptroller's final accounting of books. In October, this budget reflects the final reconciliation. So that includes bill paying and money unspent by the administrations reverted back to the general fund, and whether or not we're going to put that money into a trust fund for future use, or reallocate the money to be paid for bills, or we allow what we call prior appropriation to continue, which means that money can be utilized by the state agency again going to next year, as part of their FY24 budget. There was a bit of a deficiency, but I think it was a little bit overblown because, again, the capital gains taxes were not as vigorous, and we can talk about that again. What I think is going to happen starting next year in capital gains, but very poor year in capital gains from FY23, and fiscal year starts on July 1st. By the way, that's why we first fiscal year is a little confusing. When to make those comments on what year we're in regarding the fiscal budget, so it's not calendar year; it's July to July.
Right.
So. But part of it also includes the funding for collective bargaining agreements that were completed back from March to May of this year with the state government. So state government employees are waiting for their cost of living adjustments, which obviously I'm hearing a lot of unhappy folks that this has now been delayed because we did vote for this in July, didn't come out of that conference committee complete. And we voted again in November, and we're still waiting for conference committee to agree to this. We couldn't come to a consensus about having a good conference committee between the House and Senate leaderships. And now, obviously, there's very upset public employees. And the other big part that's in the budget is this one-time funding for this migrant shelter issue. As you may be aware, the judges allowed the governor to cap at 7,500 total families that can qualify for this. However, the governor's office believes that the funding and the current pace will probably expire before the end of January. So we're trying to put another $250 million scraped from various trust funds, so to speak, because we do have a lot of different trust funds out there that are committed to different purposes, and try this one-time funding to get through this for next fiscal year, while praying and advocating and sometimes begging and other less happy words to recognize the plight they've dumped onto the states regarding their frankly irresponsibility of how to handle a humanitarian issue, just flat out irresponsible in how they're handling that on a humanitarian crisis. So so we got that going on too. And
is there a deadline, Tacky, to when this can go until before you have to start all over again?
Yeah, this was asked to me, and I gotta go through the Tacky Institutional Historical Database. If I remember correctly, budgetary items are not addressed before the beginning of the new calendar year opening session, meaning before January, which is January 3rd this year is the first. Yeah, because Monday would be January 1st. So January 3rd, any budget oriented items expire.
Oh, okay.
So, if the Conference Committee is unable to do something, I believe it expires, but I need to double check that for you guys.
Okay. All right.
It's been such a long time since we found ourselves in a situation like this where the budgetary items are not.
Yeah, I heard something like 30 years it hasn't happened.
Yeah. And back then, 30 years ago, we had to start. That was not a 2-year session. 30 years ago, it was a 1-year session. You started a brand new cycle. You had to file bills all over again. At the beginning of the year, all bills expired. Committees reform kind of in a weird way. They already formed, but I mean, they kind of reformed temporarily. It was different. and because he
Yeah.
stopped over as a clean slate. So now bills carry over into the second half of the cycle in 2024, 2023, but budgetary items and whatnot, automatically die off at the end of the session year.
Okay.
So these dates are confusing, folks. I have to keep track of this stuff in my head.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I get it. Yeah.
so, um, so yeah, we do have a deadline, and if I'm correct, they're going to have to produce something quickly by end of December.
Okay.
So stay tuned. We're kind of hoping that there's a lot of pressure from folks on different areas regarding the humanitarian issue, plus the state employees issue. Will actually sheriff's office impacted too. Will be addressed soon. Obviously, Quincy has a lot of public employees in it. The vicinity
Hmm.
Aspen. So I am very aware that we have a lot of state employees and county employees living in the city, and I'm very
Right.
sensitive to the issue regarding the colas.
Right. Right. Okay. We'll wait and see what happens with that. So informal session, though, if one person, like you say, objects, then it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and but you got to have an end game if you go in there. I mean, the last time we actually had this significant problem was when we had more Tea Party folks in the state house, and they thought they could leverage House and Democratic leadership against themselves, essentially, by constantly objecting, and realized after they did it for like a solid month, they weren't getting anything out of it because they had no. They just did it as a promotional stunt.
I
I mean,
see. Okay.
we talk about this quite a bit here in politics when we discuss whether it be Beacon Hill or Capitol Hill or even other countries. When we bring up topics here, I mean, I'm a big believer in end game. What is the end game?
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
the aggravation. What is your goal?
Right. Yeah. Good question. Because at the end, you have to get something done.
Yeah, hacking everybody off in your workplace, you better have an objective because your objective is just to make people upset at you. It doesn't really create a conductive workplace.
Right. And it doesn't bode well for your future, either as an elected official or a private employee.
That's it, because we're in a public spotlight, and it isn't hard to find news articles regarding our behavior. And with State House News Service, not like I'm encouraging people to do this, but obviously, if you're an employer, business, and you want to get caught up on our news, you can actually go to the State House News Service, which is actually what the Boston Herald and the Boston Globe will buy, State House News Service articles. And of course, you guys have to be able to broadcast some of our public hearings and some of our sessions. I remember watching an old hearing in your lobby. I was like, wow, that was like a year and a half ago, but you guys are broadcasting it now. So hopefully we have date stamps on these things to let people know which hearing it was when.
That's a good idea, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so people don't call me like, "How you did this?" I'm like, "Yeah, that was a long time ago."
That's right. Yeah, no, there's something called the Mass Media Exchange where all those meetings are available for local access centers.
Yeah, and like I said, we also can watch this online at malegislation.gov. I bring up that website at the end of every show. But yeah, I mean, if you don't want to do that, you can obviously go to QATV and watch live broadcast on it on the website, as well as if you have Xfinity Comcast, you can do that there. So, the 21st century allows anyone to be able to watch from the comfort of being in Florida, for example. A QATV broadcast that allows you to watch some of our hearings and our sessions. And of course, with the age of the internet, we're no longer broadcasting on PBS. Remember the days when we were on Channel 44?
Yep, I do remember those. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. We had to pay for that, by the way. That wasn't free.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the legislature had to pay Channel 44 to broadcast us.
Oh, interesting. I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, I know this because in the 03-05 financial crisis, we had to start cutting the budget, and we discovered we just better try to move this onto the internet for the first time. Don't start me about State House technology, but the first time we migrate over to the internet and cancel the contract with 44 when it was up for renewal because you just couldn't afford it back then. So that's actually the story how we actually migrated all the sessions onto the internet, and then the broadcasting of public hearings is a COVID creation. They were already in the process in 2019 of doing a massive upgrade in the hearing rooms on cameras, and they had these big screen TVs, and then we had like what we called test trial hearings, some public chair hearings, okay, by the chairs allowed testing of the equipment, like, whether the closed caption will work. And they're trying to shake the kinks out in 2019, going to 2020 to see if they can, do this properly. I remember because I was like at a hearing and it wasn't being broadcast. They were just trying to check the tech to see, how it would work in live conditions. And of course, when 2020 hit, nothing was going on for a bit, and we migrated onto Zoom hearings. I was one of the few chairs that decided we're going to do this, in a public hearing, and we use Zoom as opposed to Microsoft Teams because we didn't have enough licenses for 26 odd committees to broadcast simultaneously.
Right.
And I'm one of the few guys that did this on Facebook Live, and then we sent the archive recordings to State House Tech, and then waited for them to upload our Zoom hearings on. And now we're on Microsoft Teams, and we're obviously back in person. If you look at our hearings, the chairs are in person. Not all the members have to be in person. But again, this is some of the stuff. It only had to do this because of COVID. And it's kind of yes, but also kind of no. We're already moving that direction.
Yeah. Just kind of sped things up a lot.
Yeah, and also not us being the salesman, we finally kind of went through the start and stop reopening of everybody over the course of 2020. Also gave the State House employees working technology in particular the ability to do stuff because we weren't there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they can do the wiring. They didn't have to worry about us being underfoot, for lack of a better term.
Right. Yeah.
When they were in the building, wiring up the tech and doing all these changes to our offices regarding technology. But one of the drawbacks, of course, was this, as I'm using this Microsoft Surface talking to you now, because remember I was using my little cell phone the whole time.
Yep.
At one point. We took us 18 months to find the Surfaces because there's just no computers available because of the massive need for home offices.
Right. Yeah. The schools bought up a lot of them too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we were suffering the same problem everyone else was during 2020, 2021. I think we didn't get these units until 2021 November.
Wow. So 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, some people think that, what we did, we had to do, and it's true, but some of the stuff was already in the works prior. It's just, it just was, everything in life was delayed.
Yeah. Yes. We talk a little bit about the debate about gun reform, Techie. I know there was kind of both sides at the State House this week.
Yeah, it's kind of an odd situation. Joint Committee on Public Safety had a number of firearms-related legislation that heard this week. However, we did already pass a major gun reform bill back in early November. I think my dates are jumbling on what were we doing when. So it was kind of a curious session. Curious hearing because it's we already addressed it, but public hearing chairs weren't able to get a schedule together until this week on the issue. I'm going to tell you, anything you heard in this week's public hearing is not going anywhere most likely, unless it becomes a vehicle for a Senate version of some kind of firearms-related reform bill. If they choose not to use the one we sent over to the Senate. I checked yesterday, actually, and the bill has not been referred to committee that we sent over to the Senate. Not yet. It's still hanging in limbo in the Senate clerk's office, waiting for the House Senate Committee on Rules, basically the Senate President, to make a referral to a committee from there, which should be Ways and Means, because there is a cost component. And so I'll tell everybody as a real life issue that I wouldn't expect any of the bills we heard this week to go anywhere. The issue's been addressed by the House. How the Senate manages it, maybe they take a bill out of there, but under the way the rules system's set up on moving bills, they really need to use the vehicle the House sent over, because we can't re-debate an issue of the same type twice in the rules.
I see.
Because it's not budgetary. It's not like collective bargaining, which is part of a package deal of a budget that was not that was something passed along but wasn't funded or passed in. I've seen this before where, the attempt by the Senate to send us something over already debated on a different vehicle, different bill, even though we already sent them a bill sitting in the Senate. And unlike Congress, there's no way to reconcile the two, because in Congress, even though they're separate committees, the bill comes out of the House and it goes straight to a starting over committee in the Senate. Then it's to go through the bottom of the process back to the top. And
No wonder why it takes so long to get stuff done down there.
yeah, and well, actually, most states have this. I mean, only about, I think, less than 5. I think 3 states have joint committees like us, which cuts out the recycling of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So we have joint committees where the House and Senate meet together, and then that's the start process,
Mhm.
so to speak, on reviewing public policy. And then
Mhm.
it goes to, steering policy, ways and means, third reading, then onto the floor. Then we ship it to the Senate, and the Senate does not send it back to a start over committee. It actually goes into a standing committee, which is a committee that's not jointly controlled by both branches. So it'll probably be, like I said, ways and means should be the likely culprit, but you also could send it to the House and Senate Committee on Rules, for example. As another example of a place you could put a bill in a standing committee. I've seen it done before. Very, very, very rare, but I've seen it done before. So that's how it's set up here. In other places, you start at the bottom of one branch, go all the way top, pass the bill through, then you go to the other branch, and you have to go to the bottom of the review process, and you have to start over again. And that's how many states work in Congress. I also learned many states don't have public hearings.
What?
Yeah, that was my response too. I mean, we're getting always accused of not being a sunshine state. And I'm like, let's back up a second, folks. I have to take testimony from anybody that walks in a room. And we
Right.
don't swear people in. Other places is by invitation only, and you're basically sworn in on pains and perjury. We don't do pains and perjury in Massachusetts.
No, you just walk in and talk.
You walk in and talk.
Yeah.
And that sums it up. So, now we have to schedule because of online. If you want to speak online, we have to do a scheduling process for online. But if you walk in the door at my public hearing and you want to say something, just sign up and we'll let you up and give you 3 or so minutes and, potential questioning for the committee members.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this is part of the thing I learned at TechNet, talking to other legislators and also other government affairs people, because they just don't do Massachusetts. Those guys do national or regional, like 10 states or 5 states or 20 states, or some go to all around the country and testify at all the legislatures. And we're one of the few, if not the only one, that actually allows people from the public to walk in. So I always marvel at, accusations of non-transparency. And I also find it funny these national groups do that. Well, they well know what it's like in other states' committees. So again, I take a lot of stuff with a grain of salt when people say, particularly national organizations. They know the truth. They just choose not to tell people in Massachusetts how things work other places.
Yeah.
And I don't know either until I meet other legislators. And I'm like,
Right.
you just see
How
a
would
look
you?
on my face when they find this stuff out. I'm just like, what?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you think about it, you really, if you don't have the public hearing process, then legislation's kind of out of the public's purview.
Well, in some states like Florida, limited how many bills you can file.
Oh,
The
wow.
legislature, there's no right to petition in most states. Most states are not right to petition. Most states are, caps how many you can file. And some states have committees like, review the reps' bills before they're even allowed to go into filing.
Oh,
So, yeah, I mean, it's different everywhere. And obviously, we're a full-time legislature. We talked about our longer sessions because we have formal sessions essentially, almost 10-ish months at the first half and 6 months in the second half of the session. But we also have informal sessions. Some states don't even have informal sessions. They shut down.
Oh.
And as a result, they have extremely strong governors.
Yes. Okay, I see. Yeah.
Because since the legislature is not in session, the governor basically can run rampant, and try to defy the legislature. And the legislature can't do anything until they come back into session. And in places like Texas, only work 5 months out of 2 years, and only in the first half of a 2-year session, which I find funny. So why just get reelected every year as opposed to every 2 years? But they also don't get full-time pay as a result. And also they run a 2-year fiscal year budget. So if something goes sideways in the second half of a 2-year session, the governor has a lot of control, but the governor has the ability to summon the legislature back into session.
Okay. Yeah, I see.
I think I learned when I did my tour to Texas State House. It was actually quite interesting. And then we talked to some people in other states, like in Pennsylvania, they can record their votes with the minority or majority whips in the House, and they cast a vote on their behalf. They don't actually have to go to a session.
No.
I was appalled by that, by the way.
Yeah.
But again, it's not my state.
Right. Yeah. You could be anywhere. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I mean, I was like complete shock because I'm like, we have to show up.
See, this is good.
I was taught as a young person, half the battle showing up for work.
Yeah, well, at least 50% of it, right?
Yeah. As you all know,
Interesting.
I mean, I do have an acting and modeling background from my younger days, and I learned that lesson quick. So, quick side story. There was a commercial, I believe it was by Porsche. It was a foreign commercial that was not shown in the US. And, I had a small role because I was still young enough to pass for a student. And it started raining, and these were outdoor shoots. But I showed up at work anyway. And because it was a SAG contracted shoot, the fact I showed up and signed in, they had to pay me, even though they didn't pay me for the work, because even though I didn't actually work because it was raining too hard, because it was all outside, the fact I showed up, I got paid.
Oh,
So there was rescheduled, and I was able to get to the new day schedule, and I got paid twice. So, I learned very quickly at a young age, show up for work. I mean,
well, yeah. I mean, you showed up. It wasn't your fault it rained.
no, I mean, it really started coming down bad after I showed up, and this was purely outdoor shooting. There was no indoor components, so
Right.
I got paid, and I was like, okay, well, this is part of it. So
Lesson learned. Yeah, exactly.
lesson learned, right? So again, I'm not good. I was a little appalled, but again, it's a different state. It's how they operate. It's not my job to tell them how to do their job. It's their voters
Well,
to tell
that's right. Yeah. Speaking of rain, we talked a little bit about the state's plans to combat climate change. The governor made some announcements yesterday about actually a new, I don't know if it's a cabinet position, but at least in addition to the Massachusetts Office of Coastal Zone Management, to have kind of a head person to deal with this.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of issues on the waterfront. As you all know, Quincy is a water-based coastal community. There's 25 or 26 miles of coastline in Quincy, depending on whose math we're talking about. And coastal resiliency is a big part of climate change. And this is kind of an under-discussed conversation in Massachusetts over the course of my lifetime in this gig. It's because we all want to address issues such as using more renewable power, cutting back electrical use, which is kind of funny because of electrification. We're trying to cut back electrical use by one electrification. However,
I agree. Yeah.
we can talk about that more another day.
Yeah.
But no one wants to talk about coastal resiliency. And as a person who lives literally, my home is across from Black Creek Marsh. I do see the tidal changes through the marshland. People don't want to talk about that stuff. And honestly, you look at the past governors and lieutenant governors, the majority do not live on the coastline. They didn't grow up on coastlines. And as a result, coastal resiliency is running behind schedule. We should have had coastal resiliency addressed by prior governors, but again, they don't see that. And I talk about dredging the channel all the time too, which is also a big part of maritime, right? Mm-hmm. Dredging actually gives you a better flushing of Quincy Bay, which is a shallow bay because it's an artificial beach, which keeps pouring sand into the bay because this is not a natural beach. And the sand eventually drifts south to Cape Cod by natural tidal movement. But, that's also part of it too. And we have a lieutenant governor that's a coastal lieutenant governor for the first time. Lieutenant Governor Driscoll was mayor of Salem, a coastal community. So, mm-hmm. I mean, I'm honestly very excited and very happy that, the governor's folks are looking to address climate change, but also, really pushing with DCR regarding things like, a better maintenance of recreational areas along the beachfront. The dredging issue continues to be a priority. I did get some ARPA money that is still being waited to be used for dredging, and obviously, recreational roadways like Furnace Brook Parkway. Obviously places like the Blue Hill, but also the creeks, right? I mean, we have Town Brook, we have Furnace Brook. And people don't realize that Quincy's surrounded by water. I mean, to the north of us is Neponset, to the south of us is Fall River. And cutting through the middle, we have two major brooks. Mm-hmm. But although we can't see Town Brook mostly because it's all underground. Right. But the city is surrounded by water. Well, most people don't think of it, but it really is. So the having the governor actually commit a part of one of her agencies to look at climate change and look at coastal resiliency in that manner is crucial. Rising tides impact the coastline first. It doesn't matter where on the coast you are. And natural defenses have eroded. Sand dunes, seagrass, a lot of these natural defenses along the coastline have been eroded. So, whether they explore, tidal breaks by putting large environmentally acceptable objects into the water. They've done this with big ships in other countries where they drop these tankers that become essentially coral reefs.
Yeah.
They clean out all the dirty stuff and then, drop the metal in the water, and then, it becomes essentially a coral reef in certain places. And it becomes a tidal break because it breaks the underwater wave, because the waves actually start under the water. It's when they hit the coastline, they come out of the water.
Right.
And they buffer underneath on the way through. It reduces the size of the tides that hit you, right? And like I said, seagrass and sand dunes are natural defenses that have eroded or destroyed by human reconfiguration of the coastline.
Yeah.
Let's be polite. And also, also things like seawalls, right? And tidal gates and preservation of marshlands, and better management of all the brooks and rivers, all help regarding coastal resiliency.
Yeah, there's many of the things that you talked about are mentioned in her announcement yesterday. I actually have right here, Coach Steve. But one thing that caught me, I thought was interesting, was, you mentioned nature-based solutions, dredging, coastal nourishment, roadway elevation, and managed retreat. Wonder what managed retreat means.
I'm not sure what that means either. If you watch the news, I think you all seen places like the Haunt, having their people's homes fall into the ocean.
Yeah.
It's so tragic. I mean, it's terrible, absolutely terrible. If you look at the video of these people's homes and cliffsides, literally just going to collapse, right? And on the South Shore, I mean, the biggest news is always Marshfield, right? I mean, Marshfield is literally underwater. It's below sea level. It's a marshland. Mm-hmm. And people's homes up on, oh my God, it's terrible. They're up on, they have to rebuild their homes on stilts, and they have that funny situation where water goes over the wall into the drainage system, come out of the drainage system back to the ocean and recycle. Literally, it sounds like it goes over the wall into the drainage system, comes out back into the ocean, then comes back in. It's horrible, absolutely horrible.
It's like a catch-22, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so I know folks along the water here, we do get a lot of flooding people's homes, and yeah, it's tough, and we definitely need to mitigate it. Not suggesting we move homes in Walston, to Quarry Hills. I'm obviously not suggesting that, but I mean, there are ways to mitigate. But certain private, public, and properties are probably going to have to shift off right against the water at some point. Like Nahant's my favorite example. Again, I mean, they're literally cliff sides just collapsed. The ocean, and your home's up there for probably built 100 years ago, when there was another 100 feet or 200 feet plus of land in front of you before the ocean started taking it back. I mean, nature just came in and decided they want to reclaim it all. And it's not like we can stop that nature from wanting to do it. But I mean, some of the stuff, is accelerated by climate change. But I mean, it was 100-year worth of just natural nature just taking it. Climate change accelerated nature taking it back. Right. I think that's the way to do it, talk about it. So, I think humans are going to have to retreat off the water at some stage. And that includes including the wharf, Long Wharf in Boston. I'm young enough, old enough to remember my young days watching the Marriott being built. They built them on pillars. They thought they were ready for future climate change issues because based on the models of the time. But that was in the early 80s, and now we're in the early 2020s, actually 2020s, and the models have changed dramatically from then.
Yes.
And that whole area, Fort Point in Boston and those locations, subject to be completely underwater. Do you retreat off the coast? And what do you do? And of course, there's private property ramifications. Both private homeowners as well as commercial developers sink a lot of money into their homes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
And we have privately owned seawalls.
That too, right?
People don't realize not all seawalls are publicly owned. There are privately owned seawalls, and to have if you live in Marymount and you're up Shore Ave and you got that hill up there, and then people's homes, you go behind those homes, there's kind of an odd way of putting seawalls. We would put stone up against the sides of the essentially cliff, and it helps holds up everything above it. And when the waters hit those stones, it breaks, and it doesn't cause more erosion against the essentially the cliffside. But those are private properties. They're not publicly owned. And if you give it to the public to own it, then I mean, then you have easement issues because the public has a right to access places the public money paid for.
Right.
So that's a whole other, complexity to it.
Right.
So we'll see, how the government decides to unroll this stuff. As you guys all can tell, I know something about the water.
Even though you hate it.
Oh yeah, it's public. I'm afraid of the water. I do not like
Yes.
boats. I do not like being over piers. I
No,
don't
we're not
like.
going to see Tacky on a surfboard anytime soon.
No, I don't really know how to swim. It's just not my thing. But I do know how water moves.
Right.
Spending enough time working in Michael Morrissey's office, plus this elected position, I spent a whole lot of time learning about water and how water moves, and water, likes lowest points, and water is very destructive. There's like Chinese sayings. I mean, we like to use water as a how to live because it can flow, it can change, it can move, it can transform, and given enough time, it'll erode. It'll erode anything over time.
Hey, speaking of, I just thought of, you're probably aware, your colleague Bruce Ayers introducing a bill to set up a commission to study ferry service to Long Island.
Yeah, this is a constant battle between Quincy and Boston regarding Long Island Bridge. Obviously, I don't represent the Long Island Bridge. I represent the southern peninsulas, not the northern peninsulas of the city. Again, this is stuff I'm a little bit too young for. I mean, the days when Jim Sheets was doing like a protest at the entrance during the long
Oh,
ship.
yes. I was there. He's standing on the hood of a Jeep.
Yeah, I'm a little young for that story, but I'm aware of the story, and not just the impacts of the Squantum neighborhood regarding, bomb trucks coming through to blow things up, and, a better management of the folks that are having a more severe mental issues, Long Island have escaped, for lack of a better term, into the Squantum neighborhoods, causing some panic and lockdown of the schools. As well as inability to access Long Island for public recreational use. And this has always been like a huge contention between Quincy and Boston for many, 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 many decades now.
Oh, yeah.
And Boston folks don't appreciate nor care, quite frankly, bomb trucks moving through Quincy for disposal because you don't see it. And this is always classic, right? Everyone knows out of sight, out of mind, right? If you don't see it, it doesn't exist, it's not my problem. But it becomes someone else's problem. And the unique situation of this is that, Boston has property inside Quincy borders, which makes it a private property owner. But if there's no state money going into it, it doesn't give complete access. If it's just Boston money on private property, they treat like any other private property owner. They're not treated like a municipality, not government.
Right.
It's quirky. It's very quirky. It's not unusual, but it is quirky. It's not like the state. When state buys property in a city or town, we have supremacy clause. We have supremacy position over municipality. So, we can close it. Like the example is the MBTA training facility that's in Boston. MBTA police are trained in Quincy. People don't realize that off C Street. That's a private facility, but it's a state entity basically owns it.
Right.
But it's not like you can walk onto the site, onto it because it's not a public accessible area. But besides, why would you want to walk into the MBTA Police Academy, right? On the flip side, though, if we put things for transport on a road or a sidewalk or a state-owned park, everybody from the state can access, the entire public can access it. It's not limited to just people living in Quincy. So this is kind of part of the weird Long Island Bridge situation. And the argument for ferry service makes sense. It's cheaper than trying to build probably a $200 million bridge at this point, and probably just want to go up. And but I mean, there's also the condition of the properties there, and ferry service will provide equal benefit in terms of moving people back and forth from the Long Island medical facilities and substance abuse assistance facilities that the city wants to put in there. And then, also keep it out of residential neighborhoods in Squantum. Now, I also bring up this point. As the city of Boston has been like fighting this bridge issue with Quincy and building, talk about all this stuff, they've committed minimal amount of effort to address the issue in Boston themselves by trying to build another facility or facilities on public land in Boston or land you could take by eminent domain to address the issue locally. I find it rather astounding that the city of Boston has not tried to address the issue in the near term. Instead, bank on something that won't be constructed for probably a decade or two.
Yeah, that's been the mayor's argument as well. The crisis there is now.
Yeah, and I find it very shocking that neither Marty Walsh and now Michelle Wu, will look and address the crisis today. I mean, Mass and Cass, as you all discovered, they just moved to a different place. I mean, they got cleaned out of the current locale. They just moved like to a different location. And now as opposed
the
to
root cause of it hasn't changed.
no, and the concentration is moved. So as a result, I suspect in Mass and Cass, what's going to happen is this: since they cleared out Mass and Cass, and they're no longer congregating in location, now you have pockets of locations in around a geographic zone. So as to try to police one locale, they've now created a problem with creating multiple locales. This is not forward-thinking government, which I find a little bit frightening. This is, to me, somewhat common sense. If you've been around long enough, you should. It's common sense. It's the type of water, right? Water goes from one place to another. You displace water, it's going to go somewhere else.
Right.
And sometimes it pulls into more than one place because of directional water. People will move unless you find a way to address the root problem. And, that's why I'm a little shocked by this, because this is not really good city plan, good city thinking by City of Boston on this particular crisis. And the state's put a lot of money into this. I mean, I can confirm this. I mean, the state has put a lot of resources into Boston to help address substance abuse issues and homelessness for a very long time, because it is Boston. It is 10% of the population state. It is over 50% of the GDP. It's highly dense areas. And not surprising, the city gets a lot of state resources because of the size and the scope of Boston. But also, places like Quincy is a spillover, and, I'm not going to say no to people who need help. We talked about this a long time ago, and I don't think anybody in city government or state government will ever say no to anybody who needs help. However, the attitude you get from Boston folks is, well, you're dumping our problems on us. I'm like, back up a second. Who do you think your overflow is? It comes into the surrounding communities. That starts there. And yeah, I know a lot of folks from outside of Boston ended up in Mass and Cass. There's plenty of news interviews. You can watch Channel 5 in particular. There's some great stories on this. But they're there not because it's Boston. They're because of the congregation or the opportunity to continue, unfortunately, a lot of the issues they have. It allows to enable them to do that. Mm-hmm. And they're not always from like a Quincy situation. They're coming sometimes from more affluent suburban communities. So it's not, Quincy people dumping to Boston. I mean, as you can tell, folks, I mean, I've had this fight already. And I'm a human service person in heart. So, you address the immediate issue now. And Boston clearly has decided to bank on a plan 10 years down the road as opposed to addressing a crisis today in a better format by, let's say, building a facility for like $1 million or $2 million now, to triage the situation.
Right. Yeah. Stay tuned for that. And stay tuned to our 1001th AM Quincy Tacky.
Well, I'm sure you have, Council President DeBona or, Mayor Koch or Senator Keaton or any number of folks that you have lined up for 1001. You can tell them that they just missed the boat by one episode.
Tacky will forever hold the 1000th episode title.
Is that going to be part of the podcast title?
Probably not. But we'll note it. We'll note it on the website.
That's a great honor, and timing and dumb luck, I think, is part of it too.
I agree.
I don't see
it wasn't planned.
I don't see a cake in this screen here. I don't see streamers coming out.
No, there's nothing. No. Afraid not. But here we are. We're still both here. We're still both going. So that's all we can ask.
You can tell we're having a lot of fun. I mean, this is part of why not the whole reason, but it's one of the many reasons I like to do this with you, Joe. It's a lot of fun, and I get to rant a little bit, just like I did for 10 minutes.
Yeah, so. That's good. Just think of me as your bartender.
We should do this from a bar. That would be interesting. We could talk about alcohol laws.
Oh, that's another whole show.
Yeah, we do a whole show from a bar.
Yeah.
The two of us are drinks. I can see that getting nixed by your boss.
Yeah, that'd be played after midnight, I think. But we have to wrap up our show.
Yeah, again, the office is open through the holidays. Room 42 at the State House. We are moving to a little bit of a holiday schedule because obviously the staff wants to see their own families. As we're trying to work out, everyone's Christmas travels. So I mean, we're going to be there. It's just we're trying to. It's a small office of 5 people, so we're all trying to figure out how to make sure that everybody is get the fair time to accommodate their family schedules during the holidays. So, but we're in room 42. Obviously 617-722-2370, 617-722-2370. Now, please do not hesitate to call the office. Smash a button if you can't figure out where to get to because of our automated system, but we do have front desk folks now, and sometimes they get overwhelmed and you end up in an automated system. So, that does happen. Obviously, tacky.chan at amahouse.gov, tackey.chan at amahouse.gov is my email. We should do an email episode. We should check my email to see how many emails I get an hour with you. We should do it different times of the years and see what happens. That could be fun.
That could be fun. Yeah, okay.
And then we have obviously the state website at emilegislature.gov, as well as tackeychan.org, which is more of a reference page. And of course, we have X at Tacky Chan and Facebook State Representative Tacky Chan, and we have QATV. And obviously, my preference is emails and calling the office. Please do not social media me. Social media is crazy, folks. You all know what that's like. Call or email the office. Social media is not effective given the number of things people like to write on social media. We'll leave it at that. So, with that, I probably will see you in the month of December.
That's right. Yeah, we'll be a new month by then. Thanks so much, Tacky. Appreciate the opportunity. Have a great week.
Congratulations, Joe, on sticking out this long. And, you have a great rest of the week, and talk to you soon.